Okay, lesson 37, in which we will deal with the contents of lesson 40. Mudra. Another subject, another issue surrounded by so much mystery and dogma, because we fail to interpret the message from the ancient people who communicated in symbolical language. So what is mudra? Anybody knows what is mudra? People will say finger movements, hand movements. But then if you read about mudra, it's alleged to be very powerful, even more so than pranayama. How can hand or finger movements be so powerful? Anybody knows the answer? They can't. Hand movements, finger movements aren't powerful. They're symbols. Since ancient people couldn't read or write, most of them, almost all of them, they used symbols to remember things. And hand movements are superficial, have no value, if you do not feel what's behind them. It is the feeling that is powerful. Can you believe that? We live in a world where we are taught to think. If you are sensitive, you are emotionally unstable, we are told. It's true, but it's not a negative thing. When we are sensitive, we need to be trained and educated to learn to control that, because emotion is energy. The more you have of it, the better, the richer you are, because energy is our most valuable asset in life. Everything is related to energy. Your health, the functioning of your brain, your intellect. Of course, also, all those wonderful characteristics in the crown chakra can only function if there is large amounts of energy available. We know that. So what is mudra? One of the famous mudras is this. What does it mean? What is the purpose of this? I already told you, it's symbolism. It's a reminder. A reminder of what? Sitting like this, in many classes where they teach yoga, they will tell you something like, if you do this, you will go to heaven. But you have to do it for an hour or more. And every day. You think you go to heaven if you sit like that? I get a cramp in my fingers. No, but what does it mean? Hand in front of your chest, you know, from Namaskar. What does it mean? You activate Kalpataru Chakra, the tree of the wish, the wishing tree, which means you are making a promise. You make a vow. I vow this. What does this mean? Index finger ego. Thumb. The thumb is the biggest and the strongest finger on the hand. So it represents strength, solidity. I vow to control my ego. It's a vow to control ego. But do you control ego just sitting like this? No, this is symbolism. We are intellectually developed human beings. We don't need the hand movements. We need to contemplate the concept of ego in all its facets. The good points, but more importantly, the bad points. How it makes us weak, how it makes us end up in trouble. And then you automatically come to the conclusion of the importance, about how important it is to learn to control ego. So this would just actually not only be stupid, it would be too simple. To learn to control ego, you have to understand ego. That in itself is difficult. It takes a lot of time, a lot of contemplation, and a lot of making mistakes in life, where we are being confronted with ego. I'm going to tell you something that you don't learn in a basic course. Because in the basic course, I've already mixed many aspects from the advanced course and the very, very advanced master course in this basic course. Because I teach with passion and compassion. And I try to throw everything at you that I have at my disposal, regardless of the fact that it is a basic course. Yoga is surrounded by lots of mystery, secrecy. You hear that yoga can be dangerous. You hear that yoga has powerful techniques. Then you go to a yoga class and you think, whoa, what is dangerous about this? At most I can hurt my back or something like that if I push myself too hard. I don't know if you have heard about esoteric science. Esoteric books, esoteric science. Esoteric science is the science of mankind. All cultures and societies in their history have esoteric science. It's the basis of our modern society. Esoteric sciences are also the foundation of all those secret societies that we have around the world. One of the famous ones is of course the Masons, the Freemasons. They're very often they are interlinked with religion, because religion started with esoteric science, then became a tool of control and sometimes oppression. The highest form of yoga will tell you that everything is about feeling. Your most powerful tool in life is feeling. Following your heart, as you very often hear, but many people don't know exactly how to do. So why is that dangerous? Because following your feeling without being conscious, awareness, without any control tools like pratyahara, can make you end up in real turmoil. Either emotional turmoil, suffering psychologically, but it can lead to horrible conflicts with the outside world who don't understand you, on whose toes you will step. So yoga is not dangerous because you will explode or turn into a frog or something when you do an exercise wrong. No, no, no. It's much simpler. It's so simpler that you question yourself, is that higher yoga? Yes, it's higher yoga. Why is it higher yoga? If it is so simple? Because to get there, you have to lay a firm foundation in which you have learned to control, in which you have learned to understand human nature, your own psychology, in which you have learned to contact with your feelings and learn to canalize the energy that comes with emotion and feelings. Mudra is of two kinds. One is about feeling, attitude, conserving energy by controlling attitude. The other kind of mudra, there are only two. There are 30 mudras divided into two different qualities. One is based on attitude, control of attitude, which is feeling. The other one is based on supercharging energy inflow, either Shiva or Shakti. And you've already had an example of that with Siddhasana, sitting on your heel. That is designed to take in large amounts of Shakti. But I've already explained that just sitting on the heel is not what the exercise is about. It is the discomfort that you create that acutely draws your attention to Surya Bindu, where many people, honestly, are lacking consciousness. When you're lacking consciousness in Surya Bindu, in the bottom of your body, out of fear, many people have fear issues, the energy flow is obstructed in Surya Bindu. Sitting on your heel does not allow you to ignore it or deny it or simply phase it out of your consciousness. So the sitting on the heel and the discomfort that causes it is only the start of the exercise. Clearly, Satmarama described that it is a meditation exercise where you control Ajna Chakra, which means it is a concentration meditation exercise. You have to draw up energy. It doesn't happen just by sitting on your heel. You must work. And you do that with feeling. You visualize, you visualize, you imagine large amounts of energy rising up. I've already also told you, and this is also very advanced in fact, that when you get the trick, when you understand energy control based on mind control, you don't have to sit on your heel anymore, because your mind will do the work. And there is already consciousness in the bottom of your body in Surya Bindu. So you don't have this need anymore to create that discomfort, to draw your attention there. The power of feeling will determine your destiny. It's that important. Many people do not reach their destiny because their feeling has been blunted. Because our societies, our governments, our education systems tell us to replace feeling with thought. Now you see already around the world, especially in countries where stability has been installed and education is evolving more and more, there are more and more educational institutes where they go back to the old ways, and they do give students room to develop creativity and to investigate feeling. Let me give you an example. Something that makes you very enthusiastic is something that needs to be pursued. Even though your mind tells you it's foolish or stupid or dangerous or whatever. Something that makes you really enthusiastic. That means that while you are in your office or driving your car, you're thinking about it. And it makes you feel good. It makes you feel like dreaming about something that you anticipate wanting to do. You feel drawn to it. People will tell you, don't be foolish. Just get on with your work. Just get on with your life. Just get on with your job. Make money. Climb the career ladder. Buy a house. Start a family. Enjoy your vacations. And you dutifully do that and you become very unhappy. Following your feeling, you cannot do that haphazardly either, because then you set yourself up for terrible failure. It's not easy. We talked about the fork in the road. The safe way, the easy way, the comfortable way, that is to go to the left. The road to tamas. You consolidate, you get stuck, but you're comfortable. No danger, no risks, no challenges. And many people are designed for that. So this is not a rebuke or a judgment, it's just an observation. You will find out yourself in which category you belong. You go to the right side, it's the road full of obstacles and failure but it's the road that you feel attracted to. It's the road towards where you really want to be, where you want to go with your life. There are elements on that road that really attract you. You feel your chest expanding and your energy is up and you're daydreaming about it, and sometimes you have sleepless nights about it. That is feeling. Since I discovered yoga, my life has been like that. It's how I came to Korea. It took me 9 years to prepare to get here, but I did. Because I knew if I ignore this strong feeling and I do what people tell me to do, to just get a job and just start a family, what have you, I knew that I would end up regretting not having followed my feeling. So once I am in Korea, everything was driven in that same way. It's not that simple. There are many things you have to mentally take care of. Life is, of course, very complex, and it's not so simple that you can just say you must just follow your feeling. It's a combination of things, but feeling is important. The same thing happened with my first dog, which I found in the early stages of my life in Korea, 2003. My neighbor in Mokdong invited me to come over for a beer, me and my partner at that time. Something that never happened. We greeted each other, but we never visited each other's house. But they were living next door, so one day she said, "Hey, why don't you come and have a beer?" It was hot summer. "Why don't you come and have a beer?" And we were just sitting there and chatting, and I heard the sound of a dog, a puppy, crying. The first thing I did was pratyahara. It's not my karma. But I couldn't ignore it anymore. The puppy was continuing to ask, help me. So at some point I asked the obvious question. I said, you have a dog? And the reaction was very negative. Yeah, it's there in the veranda. It's sick. So I said, can I go and have a look? Then there was this little thing, only 2 months old, was taken away from her mom at 1 month old, too young. What happened was her son played guitar and played in a band, 17-year-old boy, played in a band. Then one night after a concert, in passing, somebody pushed this puppy into his hands. And he was like, where did that come from? And he brought it home, 17 years old, that's cute anyway. Only 1 month old. But mom didn't like it. So they tied it with a knot, an untieable knot. We had to cut it. An untieable knot, it was tied to the water tap in the veranda, which means it never came out of there. When it pooed, it would turn around and eat its poo. It was starved. It had a scurvy. You know what scurvy is? Because of lack of nutrients, especially vitamin C, your belly blows up. It happens with humans too. So I said, I looked at her and she was looking at me like that. And 50 years later, she still had the same look in her eyes. And she was looking at me like that. And I looked at my neighbor and I said, that puppy is not sick. Then she said, then what? I said, she's dying. She needs to be taken care of. Can I take her? I will take care of her. Then she said, I have to ask my son. So I said, okay, ask. But you know, we live next door. If your son misses his puppy, he can come anytime, visit anytime. He never visited. But she became so big. Feeling. If I hadn't taken her, continued to practice my pratyahara, it's not my karma, I would have regretted for the rest of my life not having saved. She would have died within the next couple of days. Same with Pada. I meet Pada on the riverside. I had just decided to not teach for a year, to take a sabbatical. And after my previous dog died, 15 years old, I'm alone in Korea and not sure what the future will bring. So I decided I will not have a dog anymore. Also, her passing away was very, very painful. So I just thought I don't want to go through this again. But then there was Pada. He showed up in the park and I immediately felt this connection with him. And people said, you're single and you don't even have an income and you're crazy. So I said, but I'm going to do it anyway. But what I tell you and what I didn't tell them is the feeling was so strong, I know that I will regret it if I don't. I would, for the rest of my life, wonder what would have happened with him. If he would be taken well care of, if he would have found the right person to take care of him, if he would have died or whatever. And by the way, his sister would have died too. I followed my feeling. And, you know, if you follow your feeling for the right reasons, the universe takes care of you. Believe me, I'm very down to the ground, not religious at all, but God takes care of you. The universe takes care of you. So I took Pada. 3 months after Pada, I took his sister too from the shelter. And people, before I had to go there for 2 weeks. They didn't want to give her to me immediately. I had to go through a process. So I needed to visit 5 times and go through the whole thing. Anyway, before she came home, already people said, you already have one dog, why two? But I connected the dots. Pada was adopted, torn away from his sister, and after 4 days he ran away from Solidity. And he was on his way back to the shelter in Sangamdong. If you see the map, you can draw a straight line from Solidity to our park. He was basically on his way back. He was just going back to Bali. For me, that's obvious. And likewise, Bobby stopped eating and playing with the other doggies at the shelter, and she became very obstinate, very rebellious. They didn't know how to handle her anymore, so they just left her in her cage 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. She was dying when I found her. For me, 1 and 1 is 2. Bobby missed Pada, so she got sick and was dying. Pada missed Bobby, so he ran away and he was on his way back to the shelter. That's a love story. Every day I wake up with a mission. There is purpose in my life again that was gone. That is why I quit my course and I just really didn't know what to do with the rest of my life. And at the same time, I wanted to start a studio to create a stable life again, and income, of course. Place where I can decide what I do, Saturday and Sunday. But then Corona came, which for me was a sign from the higher powers that it's not the right time. It's not meant for me to have my own studio. And not only that, I've been experimenting with stock investment for years, lost a lot of money with it also, and at the right time it started to take off, it started to go well. So all these things together, it's the universe taking care of everything. So it's a long story that is kind of related to Mudra, and then again it is not, but very important is what you feel. Not what other people tell you, and not what that stubborn, stupid, conditioned brain is telling you. Because your conditioned brain is just parroting what other people are telling you, fueled by fear, fueled by Muladhara Chakra. You as a yoga practitioner, you have Muladhara Chakra, you have your fears and anxieties, but you have another dimension, and that is hope in your heart. And courage, which is the opposite of fear. Courage to do what other people don't dare to do themselves and tell you also not to do. Why am I telling you this? Because the essence of Mudra is feeling. Even more, it's higher yoga. It's the highest form of yoga. And you do have to be careful, but do not allow yourself to be paralyzed because of fear or because of other people telling you to stay away from something because it might be dangerous or it might be risky. I made a huge mistake in 2012, following my feeling. I thought I was following my feeling. And I fell in love like a puppy, like a stupid teenager. I fell in love. I was 48 years at that time. It explains why I'm still single 7 years after we separated, because that was a disaster. I thought I was following my feeling, but later, connecting the dots, the feeling was there, yes. But it was very much polluted by fear. Fear about my future, fear of being alone, fear of not being able to take care of myself when I get older. I'm just being honest here, because I had to be honest to myself. How could it have gone so wrong? It was one of the most painful, disastrous episodes in my life, but very purifying, very nourishing. I learned my most important lessons in life from that experience. which is what I'm telling you all the time also. Failure, misery, pain is our teacher. You learn your most important lessons from those kind of situations. So I don't regret anything. I just think the universe threw that at me because that was one of the big blanks in my development, in my life. It was one of the big issues lacking, experiences that I just needed to go through to become more independent and to be more determined in pursuing my own life. It made me throughout life I've always thought, when ending up in misery, I need to be more independent. Every time. And every time I would do something, I would undertake something that would lead to more independence. But to build a house, you start with the foundation and a basement, but you're not done yet. So you can look at it and say, that looks pretty nice. But then, you have to roll up your sleeves again, because you're going to have to start building the walls and for the first floor. And every time you add a little bit more. So I'm grateful for these kind of things. But what I'm trying to say with this is that you can follow your feeling and be convinced that the universe is helping you further on your way. And the universe did, but not in the way that I thought. Instead of giving me a wonderful, harmonious relationship for the rest of my life, it gave me a big disaster, which I needed. Because if that relationship had been harmonious, then it would have kept in place my need for my dependence, my still existing dependence. So that is how you grow, that is how you mature. You can't avoid it, but when it happens, keep this in mind. It's only designed to teach you. So you will suffer. It will take time. When somebody dies, when my dog died, it took a long time to recover from that. And when that that relationship that ended, I ended the relationship. But I suffered the most from it. But I had to. Because there was so much contempt. You understand the word contempt? That I brushed it off for a long time, but at some point I said, I didn't shout, I didn't fight, I just said, I really think now it's better that you leave, that you go. And I regretted it immediately, but that is, of course, it makes you so unstable, and ego is involved, of course, like how is it possible I made such a huge mistake? But no, it was very unstable, and it took the first 3 months were the worst, and then it took about a year to kind of recover, and and then I thought, I'm pretty good like this alone. I do not want to have another disaster, and just wait and see. When it's time, the universe will provide. But really, it really works like that. It really works like that. If you follow your feeling, the right thing will happen at the right time, in the right place. And the right person will come when needed. So, whole story, my whole history, not completely, of course. There's a lot more I'm not going to share with you. Mudra is about feeling. And it sounds ridiculous, but feeling is very, very powerful if you take it serious. You must really... Let's have a look at Sambhavi Mudra. Because Sambhavi Mudra exists out of 5 steps. 5 steps that are designed to activate the chakras in a very systematic way, from the bottom going up. They call it the stairways to heaven. Because heaven is the seventh chakra. And you activate the chakras by immersing yourself into a feeling. Not a thought, a feeling, a sentiment. A thought doesn't do the trick. Thought is only a trigger. We use our brain, our intellect, to start the process, but then we need to immerse ourselves in a feeling, an emotion. And that is where the energy is generated. Now, Sambhavi Mudra, you see in the handout, it's very difficult to find correct information about Sambhavi Mudra. In fact, I've never found any correct information about it. We learned Sambhavi Mudra in Amsterdam from Swami Yoga Anand, which I tried to search on Google and he's nowhere to be found. But Swami Yoga Anand came from Kathmandu and stayed in Amsterdam for a couple of years and taught us a lot. And one of the things that he taught us is the meaning behind the symbolism of the fingers. Because you know how Sambhavi Mudra is done? And because it's stairway to heaven, you are being promised to go to heaven if you do this. You think you go to heaven? You get a pain in your eyeballs if you do that. So don't. So don't do that. It's symbolism. The meaning of the fingers according to Swami Yoga Anand is described in the handout. The thumb stands for solidity, which we saw already in this mudra. The index finger, ego, which we also saw in this mudra. The middle finger stands for pride. The ring finger is loyalty. How do we know this? When you get married, you put a golden ring on your left ring finger. Faithfulness, loyalty. The little finger, I don't know where that comes from, but the little crooked finger represents artistry, artistic tendency. Now let's have a look at the chakras. There is Muladhara Chakra, which we have studied. We have studied the chakras in detail for a reason. The function, the Snanandriya of Muladhara Chakra is smell. Which you cover with your index fingers. How do you stimulate smell, Muladhara Chakra, with a sense of pride? Pride. Now you understand where this gesture comes from. Pride. That is what you portray when you... Ancient people knew this without knowing it clearly. Hence the middle finger, hence the golden ring on the... It's amazing actually how this all comes together. It's not just a theory. It has an amazingly intricate history. So what is important here is not the fingers on the nose. It's not the gesture of which we just make fun. It's the sense of pride. This is a meditation exercise, so you start with your pranayama. No, you start with asana, then pranayama. So you've already changed your focus. You are in a meditative condition. Then you introduce Sambhavi Mudra. And you start with pride, the lowest chakra. And just feel a sense of pride. It's so simple. It's so simple that a child can do it, but sadly most adults cannot because they don't have the creativity or the fantasy anymore. But all you have to do is just sincerely, honestly feel pride. How? Everybody has experienced achievements in life. There can be a victory in sports. Winning a game that you were very proud of winning as a child or later. It can be obtaining a diploma in a certain field of study that you were really interested in and took a lot of effort, but then you got there. And you remember how good it felt, that accomplishment. Anything, a project that was very complex and challenging and difficult to complete, but you did. Pride. For each individual, you will find your own concept that will work for you. What works for me will not work for you, and vice versa. What works for you will not work for me. It needs to be something that you really feel for, something that you really, that really, it fills your chest with pride. Whoa. So everybody has, at some point in life, there are multiple things, achievements that you can use as a trigger, because that's what it is. It's a trigger. And once you have that feeling, you try to consolidate that feeling for a maximum of 2 minutes, let's say. For 2 minutes, you immerse yourself in a sense of pride. Sounds foolish, huh? This is really powerful if you do it with your heart. The next one is Svadhisthana Chakra. The water center is taste. Taste is stimulated with the pinky. Not the pinky, but a sense of artistic tendency. The water center. We talked about the water center, the emotional problems that artists often have, leading to addiction, substance abuse, tragic relationships, etc. Britney Spears is all over the news these days. She was unstable, not being viewed as an artistic necessity or asset, but by her father abused to control her, and by the judge being seen as emotionally unstable. But it's why she's a great artist. So, artistic tendency, we stimulate the chakra by visualizing something something of beauty. Visualize something of beauty that touches you. You know, in the Netherlands, in Korea, when you say to children, "I'm from the Netherlands," they say, tulips. Tulips. Netherlands is the country of flowers. Any shopping center, shopping mall where you go, there is one supermarket, there is one clothing store, there is one hardware store, there is one what have you. But there are 3 flower stalls, at least. Almost everybody, regularly buys a bunch of flowers and just puts them in the living room. But also, when we visit, people for their birthday or any kind of just when we visit, we bring a bunch of flowers and sometimes a box of chocolates with it or something, a bottle of wine or so. Very, very common. I miss that here a little bit. But we also use flowers to melt people's heart. When we have a conflict with somebody, you want to talk it out, you want to talk it over, you first pass by the flower stall, you get a nice, beautiful bouquet of flowers, you keep it behind your back, you ring the bell, they open the door and they want to slam the door in your face and you say, ta-da! I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to fight with you, and seeing the flowers, they just can't slam the door anymore. Why? Beauty. It's the beauty. It is the purpose why governments, countries, once they reach a certain level of wealth, they start pumping huge amounts of money into the artist scene. They build museums, expensive buildings with expensive art, which are often free or very cheap to visit. Why do they do that? Because it cultures people, it cultivates civilization in people. That stimulation of the water center with beauty. That is why governments spend so much money on art. For the population. I have a very specific object to stimulate my Svadhisthana chakra. It's a dahlia. A dahlia is a flower. There are two kinds. There is a small one that looks like a lily. That's not the one. The one that I talk about, I have a photo of it in my phone. Recently came across it. But it's like a lotus flower. It's like a bulb with hundreds of little petals. If you look close, you see the beautiful shades of color and the velvety texture of the petals, the leaves, the petals. And the color of that particular dahlia that I envision to stimulate Svadhisthana is the color of this cushion. Wine red. Yogis never do anything without a reason. I chose the color of this cushion based on that. Nobody knows, but that's why I asked for this color. Everything has a purpose. Everything has a reason. There's nothing in your life. If you are a yogi, there's nothing in your life that doesn't have a justification for it. Everything has a reason and a purpose. That is how you become eccentric. Which is a good thing, it's not a bad thing. People who don't understand eccentricism, they frown upon it. But eccentricism means that you're very conscious and very sensitive. And you do everything exactly in your own way, regardless of what other people think or say about it. Anyway, so we have pride, Muladhara Chakra, artistic tendency, sense of beauty. Immerse yourself in something that you really find beautiful. For me, it's a flower. It can be a person, somebody that really touched you for their beauty. It doesn't have to be physical, it can be personality. A painting, something that you have in your house that you cherish because you enjoy looking at it. Anything that works for you. For me, it's a flower. It can be a flower for you too, but it can be anything. In the beginning, you just have to experiment. And that is why I didn't want to do this in lesson 40. I want you to go through this process a couple of times before the course ends. Manipura Chakra, you can guess already, huh? Me, myself, and I. Ego. How do you stimulate ego? Jasmine!
Hi.
Yes, saw that? That is how you stimulate ego. I always imagine I'm walking in the street, a window opens, somebody hangs out the window and says, "Run! Hey, run!" It really works. If you have children, or you have a teacher, or you are a teacher and you work with children, that's how you get their attention. Why? Because you will do what Jasmine did. Jasmine did. When a child is naughty and doesn't want to stop messing around, shout their name loud. Not violently, but loud. And they will straighten up and, "Me? You calling me?" Of course, it's not that easy with children. That's why I have dogs. No, but it really works immediately. It's the easiest one. Manipura Chakra. Your name. Just imagine your name being called. Easy. Anahata Chakra. Oh wait, so Manipura Chakra, you cover your eyes just to help you be aware of the symbolism of the fingers. Cover the eyes, the nose, and hear taste. Anahata Chakra is the heart chakra, and we stimulate the heart chakra with a sense of loyalty, faithfulness, loyalty. That is what the pastor. If you marry in a religious way, the pastor will ask you to make a vow of loyalty, and to conclude the process, you're being told to put a golden ring on each other's ring finger, not the middle finger, not the thumb, the ring finger, and on the left hand, not on the right hand, left hand, to stimulate the heart. Why gold and not plastic? Because gold is inherently sattvic. That is why it's a precious metal. Precious metals like gold and platinum are sattvic. And on a subtle level, it stimulates, it leads to sattva in the body. So not only with a ring, which is designed, of course, to directly stimulate the heart, but all golden jewelry is in fact designed to bring about sattva on the person who wears them. Sense of loyalty, how do you do that? Very personal, of course, again, but for me, very easy. Because I've been on this path for so long, I'm very loyal to this path that I'm following. With all its challenges. Because it was the best thing that I decided to do. When I discovered yoga, started following my heart naturally. It led to conflicts, it led to failures, but it led to me determining my own destiny. And that is the overriding principle. It gave me my life back. So I'm loyal to that. I'm loyal to yoga. I'm loyal to the path that I chose. You can be loyal to, if you're married or in a relationship, you can be loyal, but if you use a human being for this sense of loyalty, you make it a bit complicated. Because nothing is ever perfect, also relationships. So if you recall a person to which you want to be loyal and are being loyal, while you are sitting there with your eyes closed, you might suddenly come up with something that happened yesterday that makes you grumble instead of opening your heart. So instead of a person, maybe a pet could work, because dogs, cats are a little bit stubborn and individualistic, but dogs are very loyal. Once they open your heart to you, they totally surrender. And they just need you for anything and everything. And they require your loyalty to them to be happy and healthy. So you can also install loyalty maybe with your mom, because the ultimate unconditional love comes from mothers. They have put us into this world, and whatever happens, they've done everything they could within their abilities, of course. Nothing is perfect. If you have something to complain about your mom, and you contemplate a little bit on what happened and why it happened, you will always find that she did what she could. That is unconditional love. And that is a very powerful stimulator of the heart chakra, loyalty. That kind of unconditional love. If you can feel that, that's a very good tool to stimulate the heart chakra. The heart chakra is a sense of touch, and it's symbolized with covering the upper lip with the ring, with both ring fingers. It's just symbolism, so actually forget about the fingers. The fifth chakra, and the last one in this process, is Vishuddhi chakra. It's the Jnanendriya of Vishuddhi chakra is hearing, which you cover with your thumbs. The biggest limb on your hand representing solidity. How do you recall a sense of solidity? For yogis, that cannot be too difficult, because yogis become naturally stubborn. No? Are you stubborn? I'm very stubborn. My mom used to call me a bulldozer. Should I be proud of that? But it only got worse practicing yoga. You become more determined, you know what you want. Put your foot down. Mentality. That is solidity. And you do not allow people to deter you. That is solidity. Scary to do what you want and not let other people deter you, but that is the way of the heart. You're loyal to that, and you insist, you put your foot down. Can you do that? Yes, otherwise you wouldn't be here. It takes a lot of courage to actually come here and do this course, I know. You may not realize it yet, but you expose yourself here to a lot of impressions that many people cannot handle. So you have that mentality already. Every Saturday morning, you wake up, you're determined to come here. Only one person gave up this time around. One soul, unfortunately. And he will come back. He had some issues to deal with that affected his commitment, but he will come back someday. Good, that's it. Pride. Sense of beauty. Ego. Loyalty. Solidity. Each step, approximately 2 minutes. In the beginning it won't be perfect and you will wonder whether you are actually stimulating any energy, but do not linger too much. If you take 2 minutes for each sentiment, it will take you about 10 minutes to go through this process. This is the most elaborate mudra of all. Other mudras are singular, do not exist out of so many steps. But it may look overwhelming because of the complexity, but actually in its simplicity, it's a very effective and powerful mudra because it systematically brings energy up, from the bottom up, Kundalini effect. Hence it is called the stairways to heaven. And of course this only works, really works, if you do it regularly. Not just once when you come to class. When you do it in class, it gives you a good idea what it is about, but these kind of things, like everything in yoga, only work if you do it regularly. That applies to asana practice, that applies to reflecting on the value of the yamas and niyamas. It's easy to fall back into previous behavior and make the same mistakes again. It applies to pranayama, of course, and it applies to mudra. And meditation too, which is a conditioning of the mind. Like with asana, you condition the body. If you do not do it regularly, you lose the condition. So, very powerful, systematic, very powerful, but it needs to be done. It needs to be. You have to have the discipline to do it fairly regularly. Okay, Sambhavi Mudra. That was a very long story, wasn't it? Let's have a short break.
Can I ask something?
Yes, please. Sorry.
I just sometimes I cannot separate being stubborn versus being obsessive about something. So like I keep having those thoughts that maybe I'm just being obsessive. Maybe I'm just obsessing over something that I shouldn't pursue anymore. But sometimes it might be just a situation that I might be more stubborn, but how can I be sure, or how can I differentiate being stubborn versus being obsessive?
You can only, there is no concrete answer to that because they overlap and sometimes they fill in for one another. Sometimes they compensate, no, the compensate is not the right word. They go together often, hand in hand. It's like with pride. Pride can become arrogance, but it can also become, what is the right word again? Pumwi? What is a pumwi in Korean, in English? Say again louder.
Dignity.
Yes, dignity. Thank you. Dignity. So, pride is from ego. It can turn into arrogance. It can turn into dignity. Stubbornness can turn. It can be an obsession. I think those 9 years that I was preparing to come to Korea, I was definitely obsessed, but I knew it was something I needed to work out or regret the rest of my life. So they go together. And the only way to know whether it is a good obsession or a bad obsession is by being aware of how it affects you. If you, in your contemplations, you can see where you are going with your obsession. And if it's something that is essential to you, to your heart's content, then you will feel good about it. It will activate your crown chakra every time you think about it. You will daydream about it. even doing chores that you hate, or a job that you don't really want to be, but you're happy. Why? Because you're obsessed about something that you know is close to your heart, and just the process, going towards it, makes you happy. But then if you find out that it becomes hard, the relationship that I talked about, that started in 2012, it was an obsession. Before the relationship became kind of stable, it made me very unstable. Very, very unstable. Which means it's something that lies in my karma that needs to be pursued. But when it became stable, it slowly but certainly turned into hell. The contempt that I experienced, and I'm not blaming, it's my fault. I'm not blaming my partner for that. She only acted and reacted to a situation that I created. So there's no blame here. But I know that she made a huge progress in her life as well as I did. So it's all good. But that was an obsession that turned into suffering. And then you know that it's not meant to be. Then you know that you misinterpreted the signals that the higher powers gave you. Or they are giving you a message through the suffering. So it's dynamic. There is no concrete answer to that. It's the same as with the issue of the battle between the head and the heart. How do you know? You don't. Until you try. And trying will show whether you are right or wrong, and that will only make you more mature and wiser for situations that come towards you in the future. So play. You will see after in the second session, Patanjali has some very interesting things to say about that. Yeah?
I feel like it's also related to Prajahara, like the detachment procedure. Yeah, if it's an obsession and if you're suffering from it, then you should know how to detach from it.
Yeah, but there are things that you simply cannot detach from. When Pada showed up in the park, I tried to detach because I had vowed never to have a dog anymore. I couldn't. I had to go with my red backpack with food and fresh water. I had to go 2-3 times a day. I couldn't hold myself back. I just couldn't. So I tried to ignore it, but I couldn't. And that meant this is coming onto my path for a reason. And it did. It's a full-time job, but I love it. It's strange. Yeah. Okay, let's have a short break.